meeting. All right, we are live. Down 3, 2, 1. You are.
We are calling the Westerville City Schools Board of Education meeting for January the 25th, 2021 to order. Though providing an opportunity for public comment during school board meetings is not a requirement, the Westerville City School District Board of Education believes it's an important part of its engagement with and accountability to the community. As part of our mitigation efforts to slow the spread of the coronavirus, and in the spirit of maintaining an opportunity for our public to participate in these virtual school board meetings, we are offering interested persons an opportunity to submit written public comment. During a typical Westerville City School District Board of Education meeting, there are 2 opportunities for individuals to address the board. While functioning under this virtual meeting environment, the opportunity to submit public comment will open when the meeting begins at approximately 6 p.m. and close shortly after each public comment section is reached on the agenda. Per Board Policy 0169.1, each statement made by a participant shall be limited to 5 minutes in duration. When submitting your comments through the provided forms, we ask you to please keep your comments professional, avoid the use of inappropriate language, and refrain from identifying individuals by name in the event of a complaint. You may use the links that have been provided to submit written comments for board consideration regarding a specific agenda item, and also regarding comments of a general nature. All comments submitted become a matter of public record and are subject to release under Ohio law and the Federal Freedom of Information Act. As with in-person public comments made during a traditional school board meeting, members reserve the right to respond immediately or withhold comment in order to conduct appropriate research and follow up with the speaker at a later time. Thank you in advance for your understanding and cooperation. And with that, Ms. Marshall, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Ottman?
Here.
Mrs. Davidson?
Here.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Here.
Mr. Bell?
Here.
Mr. Velardo?
Here. And with that, would you please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Okay. Agenda item 4.01, temporarily suspend board policy PO 0169.1, public participation at Board of Education meetings. May I have a motion and a second?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Marshall, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo?
Yes.
Dr. Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Bell?
Yes. Agenda item 5.01, to approve the minutes of the virtual organizational regular meeting held on Monday, January the 11th, 2021. May I please have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion, questions, additions? Hearing none, Ms. Marshall, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Velardo,
Yes.
Dr. Nestor,
Yes.
Mrs. Altman,
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson, Mr. Bell.
Yes. Moving on to agenda item 6, which deals with district highlights and recognitions. Agenda item 6.01, a resolution of appreciation for City Manager David Collinsworth. May I please have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, and I will read the resolution of accommodation for David Collinsworth. Whereas David Collinsworth served 13 years as Westerville City Manager, being appointed in November 2007, and whereas serving as City Manager, Collinsworth was a partner to Westerville City Schools through his collaborative efforts with the Westerville Partnership, of which the district is a member, and whereas Collinsworth oversaw back-to-back top 7 intelligent community designations and engaged with school leaders to ensure the district was included in the application efforts, and whereas Collinsworth greenlit the nation's first municipal data center, WeConnect, which has helped build the district's digital infrastructure needed for growth, and whereas Collinsworth often supported, hosted, and/or participated in school and district-related functions, such as the annual 3rd grade walking tour of Westerville and Hanby House field trip, Engineer for a Day events with the Westerville Electric Division, and the Westerville Education Foundation's celebrity artist activities. Therefore, be it resolved that the Westerville City Schools Board of Education and Superintendent sincerely thank David Collinsworth for the professionalism and dedication he displayed in his role as Westerville City Manager. Dated January 25th, 2021. And I believe is Mr. Collinsworth with us this evening. Was he able to join us?
I am here.
He's here. Would you like to say a few words for us, Dave?
I certainly will. President Bell, members of the board, Dr. Kellogg, and staff, thank you for this recognition and honor this evening. Had a bit of a scare there for a minute. I saw Brian Miller and Julie Colley's name up there, and I thought I was in the middle of a council meeting for a second. But I appreciate, I really do appreciate the partnership over the years. We've done so many things together collaboratively between the city and the schools and with our other partners in the community. I think back to projects like the communications initiative with the communications tower and the radio communications project that we were able to collaborate on to save taxpayers money and provide additional service to the community. The collaboration with respect to the current project going on right behind you with the new police court facility, with the shared access agreement there, and so many other things to go back to over time to point to that represent the great collaboration and partnership between the city and the schools, which really I think was the true benefit of our community and to the benefit of our taxpayers, many of whom we have in common. So I appreciate the recognition tonight. It's been an honor to serve this community. It's been great working with you and your predecessors and the staff over the years. And also, just as a final comment, I would say as a proud parent of Westerville City School District with 2 graduates and 1 soon to be, God willing, or maybe should I say John willing. But well, we've really, we know that our kids have done extremely well. They had the great foundation with their education here. And that is very much appreciated from the perspective of a parent. So I guess the only other thing I would say in closing would be, go Cats.
Thank you, Dave. It truly has been a wonderful partnership over the years, and we have certainly appreciated all of your hard work and dedication and the many, many contributions that you have made, not only to the city, but to the broader Westerville area. We certainly want to thank you and certainly wish you well and all the best in your retirement. And with that, Ms. Marshall, would you please call the roll?
Dr. Nestor Baker,
Yes.
Mr. Florida,
Yes.
Mrs. Altman,
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson,
Yes.
Mr. Bell.
Yes. Along with that, at item 6.01, we also have a resolution of appreciation for the Assistant City Manager, Julie Cawley, and Vice President, Dr. Nestor Baker, will read it. But before we do that, may I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, and Vice President, Dr. Nestor Baker.
Delighted to read this. Resolution of commendation for Julie A. Cawley. Whereas Julie A. Cawley served more than 18 years as planner, economic development coordinator, and then appointed assistant city manager for the city of Westerville. And whereas Cawley has been an important part of our community as a past leader of the Westerville Sunrise Rotary, which created the Rotary Foundation grant for programs and projects that support children and youth who live or study within the Westerville City School District boundaries, recognized educators with the annual Service to Youth Awards, and donated books and funds to help create diverse classroom libraries. And whereas, while serving in her various roles in the city of Westerville, Cawley led efforts to improve our community's services, our award-winning parks and recreational facilities that benefit our students and families for many years to come. And whereas Cawley devoted time to plan and implement the nation's first municipal data center, WeConnect, which has helped build the district's digital infrastructure needed for growth. Therefore, be it resolved that the Westerville City Schools Board of Education and Superintendent sincerely thank Julie A. Cawley for the professionalism and dedication she displayed in her role as Assistant City Manager for the City of Westerville. And it is dated January 25th, 2021. Julie, I see your name here. Would you like to say a few words? There you are.
Hi, thank you, Vice President Nestor Baker, President Von Bell. I really can't say a whole lot more than what Dave has already expressed. It is an honor and privilege to have served this community and to work with our partners, including the school district. We have accomplished so much together. I would add one to the list, which I think is incredibly important, and that's the Aloft Hotel on South State Street. We could not have turned that parcel into what it is today without the school board and the school's support. And there are so many different projects we have out there that you all have supported us on as we continue to grow our community. So thank you very, very much. I look forward to seeing you around town.
Thank you. And also, we hope that you will. We have enjoyed partnering with you over the years as well, and hope that you enjoy your retirement as well. At this time, Ms. Marshall, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Davidson,
Yes.
Mrs. Altman,
Yes.
Mr. Florida,
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker,
Yes.
Mr. Bell.
Yes. Next item on our agenda is 6.02. 6.02, the recognition of Leadership Westerville's Martin Luther King Jr. Legacy Project celebration and acknowledging and recognizing the Faust and Austin Award winners. It is my distinct honor and pleasure to share with you all these two tremendous members of our community. The Faust Award is named for William H. Faust, who was the first Black graduate of Westerville Schools and also of Otterbein College, now Otterbein University. And it is awarded to a student that lives within the borders of the Westerville City School District that exemplifies the ideals and the teachings of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And the Faust Award winner for 2021 is Miss Isa Sanchez. She was nominated by Matt Wolf, who is a theater teacher here in the district. And Mr. Wolf writes, "I have known Isa since she was 8 years old, a sweet, active girl who loved dancing and singing and acting. Cast as a munchkin in a community production of The Wizard of Oz, I had no idea that a short trip down the yellow brick road would lead to a decade of learning and growing as teacher and student. Isa has always been a fighter, quick wit, willing to go the distance, able to speak her mind and advocate for herself, but always with a warm smile and a generous heart. As a sophomore, Isa came to South like she had been there from day one, landing roles and shows, taking leads on the Black Voices celebration, and leading her own life through a social justice lens. When the tragic and horrific death of George Floyd hit our nation in May 2020, followed up by the onslaught of other victims, Isa couldn't stand still or be silent any longer. So, at 16 years old, she grabbed her mask, her bullhorn, and started walking. Isa hasn't stopped, discovering her own path to truth while trying to forge a path for those around her and those that will come after her. Isa found every outlet to have her voice heard, to speak up for truth and what is right in the world. She didn't pay attention to what her friends were doing. She didn't wait to be asked. She stepped up. She used her voice, followed her heart, and listened to her gut. Social activism has become part of her art now, and she incorporates it into every aspect of her life. Our theater department, community, and my personal life have all been enriched and filled with love because of the impact of this fantastic human being. So we want to certainly say congratulations to Ms. Isa Sanchez, who is at Westerville South. Isa could not be with us this evening, and so we certainly want to congratulate her. The Alston Award is an award that is named for Miriam Alston, who freed a group of slaves that eventually made their way to Central Ohio, to the Westerville area, and settled in the Africa Road area. And it is awarded to a community member that not only talks the talk, but walks the walk. Someone who has taken the ideals of Dr. King and implemented them into their everyday life to help transform the community. And I am excited and proud to announce the 2020 Alston, or 2021 Alston Award winner is Mr. Desmond Fernandez. Desmond was nominated by Mrs. Stephanie Henderson, and here is some of what she has written about Desmond. Some have known Desmond Fernandez for years, and others of us are learning the passion behind his thoughts and actions. Having grown up in Westerville and attended Westerville schools, Desmond is now a senior theater major at Otterbein University. He is a tireless organizer. Desmond has taken on the events and heartbreaks of 2020 as opportunities to both raise awareness that our country and our community needs racial justice, and to achieve that, we need each other. We need to be in community. Desmond was the primary organizer for a number of events that brought us together in the midst of our global pandemic. His organizing efforts included at least 3 protests, a Juneteenth celebration, and food distribution events for those in need. In this, Desmond shows us all how to stand in and for racial and social justice while loving our neighbors, even if they don't value and live the same things we do. As we consider Dr. King's vision that love is a moral imperative, as we strive to be citizens that heal our country and communities, Desmond strives to live Dr. King's vision of love. And with that, we certainly want to congratulate Mr. Desmond Fernandez, and I believe, do we have Desmond with us this evening?
Hey, hey.
There he is. Would you like to say a few words, Mr. Fernandez?
I guess I can say a few words. First of all, I just want to say thank you very much, Von Belt. Mr. President, now I was reading all the updates. Hello, hello, and look at this family reunion. I'm looking, I wish we were all here in person, but I'm loving the virtual as well. And I'm looking around at all you guys, and we're all friends, we're all family here. I remember just starting in elementary school, going to Mark Twain, and then work my way up, going to Walnut Springs, and then graduating at Westville South, and now I'm here at Otterbein. First, I just gotta say, I love Westerville. I love everything about it. I love the community, the people, our parks, our schools, everything. It's a place that is a success lifeline for me, and something that I hold truly close to my heart. And I mean, just everyone right now that I'm looking on the screen, I feel like we're all on a first name basis. I mean, going back to, I remember when I was on the superintendent advisory board and making sure Dr. Kellogg would get us those snow days sometimes when they would come through. But even, going to school with your daughter, Tracy, Rick Villardo, I remember when you wrote me a note in the book and you gave it to me. All you guys, I just appreciated you guys so much for making me feel kind, important, and like I matter. And that's something that we're really struggling with today in our society. The fact that there's a lot of injustice that's going on, and particularly with people that look like me. And myself and my story is an exception. I have been allowed opportunities that not many others can have. And that's why over this last year, I made sure that I was going to use my platform and my voice to really make a change, and also to use Westerville to make a change. I think Westerville is a community that not only wants it, but needs it. Westerville has a lot of beautiful moments in its history and a lot of beautiful people, but there's also a lot of people that are struggling as well, and that have a lot of trouble and hate in their heart. And I think it's going to be a community collaborative and united front for us all to be able to work harder to make Westerville a more equitable and more equal place for all. So I know we have so much work to do. There's so much still to do, but we have, I believe, the right people to spearhead it and make sure that we can get this change done. We have so much energy. I'm telling y'all, listen, I got a little older. Yeah, I'm not the young buck in high school. I got a little bit more facial hair on my face. I'm telling y'all, there are so many young people in our community that wants this change. They are willing to put in the work. They have the passion. They have the knowledge, but they don't have the power. And you guys in your positions have that power. So I think if we can all align ourselves and work together to really push forward for this change, I think we can be a leader for many people. I think we can be a leader community for other communities to act, because I know Westerville, we're not only just strong or not only just expansive community, that this school district is bigger than the actual city itself. We got a lot of heart, and we don't lay down and quit. We fight. And I know that we can all fight together, and we can fight with love. And just like Martin Luther King says, love can change an enemy. So we got to keep on pushing for that. But I thank you all so much. I love you. You're all my family. I was like, this is like a family reunion. Like, I'm happy. I miss you all. I'm just in my apartment, just chilling, you know, reading books and stuff. But man, I'm telling you, I miss you. I love you all. And thank you for having me for this short amount of time. I really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you for all that you do. We truly appreciate you.
President Bell, could I jump in here for just a second? Desmond, are you still on the call?
Oh yeah, I'm still here.
Put Desmond's face back up there. Desmond, I'm gonna call you out about something. You ready?
Okay, what's up now?
Desmond mentioned a book a couple years ago when Desmond was a senior, I believe, at South.
Yep.
Desmond and I met and we talked, and he was sharing with me his plans for the future. And part of that plan was to make a difference, to make an impact. And the word president was tossed around a few times. And I don't mean president of the board, President Bell, even though that's an awesome thing. And so I went to Westerville South during the school day, which you're not supposed to do. But I went to the principal's office, so it was okay. And I said, I have something for this Desmond Fernandez. And they said, well, what is it? And I said, it's a book. And so they took me down to you. I think you were in a science class at the time. Took me into your class, brought you out, and I gave Desmond Fernandez the book that I've given anybody who looks me in the eye and says they want to enter politics. It's a book called Team of Rivals. And I say to anybody that if you can bring rivals together, people of disparate opinions, people of not wanting to be in the same room, if you can bring those folks together and not necessarily find agreement, but build agreement. Mm-hmm. And I think, Desmond, you are one of those guys. I'm not going to ask you if you've read the book yet, Desmond, because that would be cruel.
Hey, buddy.
Because it's a long book.
It irritated.
Hey, I just want to. It is a long book. But it's got the gem of what you already have, and that's the desire to build coalition. And my prayer going forward is, when you really get old, because I'm looking at you, Desmond, you're really not that old. You keep talking about you've gotten older. Look at Von Bell. Look at how much older he's gotten in these last days.
You might want to ask my niece that same question.
All right, I've talked enough. I just wanted people to know that we believe in you, brother, and think that you have a gift. And I just say, develop it, use it, make a difference in our community.
Yes, sir. I will. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you, sir. Glad to have you with us this evening. Desmond also holds the distinction of being the first person to win both the Faust and Alston Award. So he won the Faust Award as a student of Westerville City Schools, and now as a member of the community and a student at Otterbein University, he has been awarded the Alston Award. So congratulations to him.
Okay. Well, hey, that's great. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And also, I forgot, Nancy, I gotta shout you out because we was at a meeting one time and you gave me a bag of chips. It was the Fritos, it was the Lay's baked chips. So I was like, thank you for those. Those are like my favorite chips now.
I can't believe you remember that. But yeah.
Oh, man. Got the memory of an elephant. I remember it all.
It's those
Thank
chips. That's what does it.
I guess. All right. Y'all take care. Keep on doing your wonderful work. Thank y'all so much. And look, I hope that record gets broken over and over and over again. But until then, I guess I'll hold on to it.
Okay. You have a wonderful day. And thank you for all that you do, Desmond.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda, 6.03, recognition of the Westerville Arts Council, Westerville Education Challenge Poetry Slam winners. And that recognition is going to be made by Mr. Villardo.
Thank you, President Bell. But I believe first thing up is Jill Beck behind the scenes is going to show a video. Is that right, Jill? You're going to show this now?
Yes.
My third or fourth poem, so sucked me in immediately. So I love poetry. I wrote this poem about what hope is to me, because I think everyone has this own vision of hope that they paint, and for me it really is kind of nature, and that's where I kind of find my hope and my escape.
Where does hope really come from? What things create hope and why do we have it? So
Leaning over that counter, staring at that forsaken phone, begging. My third or fourth poem, so sucked me in immediately. So I love poetry. I wrote this poem about what hope is to me, because I think everyone has this own vision of hope that they paint, and for me it really is kind of nature, and that's where I kind of find my hope and my escape.
where does hope really come from? What things create hope and why do we have it? So
Leaning over that counter, staring at that forsaken phone, begging your friend, trying to get through to him that he's not alone. Shaking, pleading, even starting to cry. But when it comes down to it, you really don't know what to say.
I've learned to love the little things that lift me when I'm down, when everything seems entirely out of my control and nothing is allowed.
Goodbye 2020, hello 2021. Hopefully you'll be more fun.
Thank you very much, Jill, for sharing that behind the scenes. This was in tribute to something called the Voices of Hope, Poetry Slam, and many students participated. It was sponsored by the Westerville Arts Council and Westerville Education Challenge, of which our own Miss Tracy Davidson is a significant part of that. Tracy, I didn't ask you ahead of time, but is there something you wanted to say about the Poetry Slam or Education Challenge as part of that? I didn't ask you ahead of time, but just wanted to give you an opportunity to do that.
So Nicole Marshall is also part of our group. I'm not sure if you know that, but I wanted
I didn't know that.
to acknowledge that. She's been a wonderful addition. One thing I would like to highlight, the reason this started was to give kids a creative outlet, especially with everything going on in the world. So I think it's really important to highlight that. Dennis Blair brought this to us in addition to Westerville Arts Council because he lost a niece to suicide. So lots of outlets there. He is also the uncle to Ashley Dunn and Josh Dunn. So that was the partnership there, which was amazing how that family came together to raise hope for everyone. And I was just awestruck by the kids and the poetry and how they really put their heart and soul in it. I was actually taping it on the way to Florida. I didn't know I had set up the Google Meet, and I kept thinking, what if I lose this? What if I lose this? So I was under a lot of pressure there, but I was able to listen to all the kids, and it was magical. So next year is going to be bigger and better. Thank you to Kelly Gersich of the Arts Council for heading this up. Amazing. And to Dennis Blair and to all the other people. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Tracy. I knew you'd have a little more insight into what that was all about. And the purpose, I believe, is really pointing toward the Hope Squad to begin 2021. Is that correct? Did you want to just highlight that for a second?
Sure. It was to raise awareness, but really this was a piece off to the side to give kids an outlet. But yes.
Gotcha.
So for the community, we really want people to know that Hope Squad is coming.
Great. Thank you, Tracy. And we want to honor the Poetry Slam winners, the Voices of Hope. So the winner recognition, Jeffrey Seeker, who is a 10th grader, and Sage Hyde, 9th grader, both of them, Westerville North High School. So that makes Miss Altman very happy. You know, got some warriors in there. That's awesome. And they could not be here tonight. But we just want to say, really, all of us want to say that those outlets for creativity to express what is going on inside just cannot be overstated. So thank you, Jeffrey. Thank you, Sage. Thank you all congratulations, Jeffrey. Congratulations, Sage. But thank you to all who participated. And a big, big thank you to the Westerville Arts Council and Westerville Education Challenge for supporting this, sponsoring this, and we look forward to hearing more voices even next year. So thank you very much. Congratulations. President Bell, back to you.
Thank you, sir. Moving on, the next agenda item, 7.01, Superintendent's Report. Dr. Kellogg.
Thank you, President Bell, members of the board. It's my pleasure this evening to bring you an update in terms of the school district and where we are in this pandemic event. What we've experienced over the last several months has been pretty significant, and as usual, things twist and turn as we go. This current turn is one that's very favorable and offers us some optimism as we move forward. You know, we know our families are frustrated. We know our students are fatigued. We know we all share in concerns for our student. And so when recent announcements about a vaccine being available came about, I think we all started to feel a little sunshine in that regard. And as it's unfolded rapidly in the last week, as we've heard of being able to offer the vaccine to school teachers in Ohio and staff, K-12 staff, as early as February 1, we all started to get more excited about that opportunity, what it might bring for us. And so we started our planning around the vaccination piece as soon as we heard that that opportunity was going to come. We were given some loose instructions early on, and going into the weekend, as you'll see, we were in one space with our planning, and as I'll share after the discussion we're going to have here, that's changed a little bit, but still still to the good for us moving forward. So we know that delivery of the vaccine immunization of our staff is a critical piece as an additional measure to keep our staff safe moving forward. It is not the cure-all to all of the things we still need to face. There's still issues related to the pandemic we're going to need to deal with, but this does offer us some positive movement, and we can talk some more about what that might be moving forward. So this evening, it's my great pleasure to turn over the presentation to some of our staff. I want to thank ahead of time Carly Collins, who's going to help lead the presentation from our HR department. She has done stupendous work in helping us make this partnership work in terms of vaccine. And of course, Jill Beck and Jennifer Ferris, who, as always, are behind the scenes working very, very hard with the rest of our team that are used to getting accolades for the work we're doing. We thank them as well. I also want to thank Chief Brian Miller from the Westerville Fire Department. Chief came to us as soon as the announcement about vaccination came, and was willing to partner with us early on. And so the plan you're going to see tonight is built upon Brian's knowledge and expertise in terms of how we might move forward with the vaccination. So we know this offers great hope. Still some things we need to work out. I have some additional comments when they're done. But at this time, I think I'm going to turn it over to Carly and the gang to share where we are in terms of planning for getting the vaccine to our staff.
Thank you, Dr. Kellogg. Thank you, everybody, for letting me be a guest on this call today. As Dr. Kellogg shared, things can change pretty quickly. We started working about 3 weeks ago, and conversations much before then as well, but really diving into this the past couple weeks about what our plan was going to be. We know that this is really fluid, so at any given moment, it could change. We're trying to prepare in advance, knowing that we might be given 2 days notice saying, hey, you're getting all these vaccines. So we're trying to just put this plan in place. What we're going to go over is kind of, as Dr. Kellogg shared, what we were planning. Some updates may be in the works for this, but we wanted to kind of make sure everybody was in the loop as far as what our plan is being discussed. So Jill, if you want to move to the first slide here. So when we took a look at the broader scale of this, we do understand that some of our employees are fairly hesitant about receiving the COVID vaccine. There's a lot of information going out in the media. It's hard to decipher what information is true and what is not. So we really put together a plan with our communications team, and thank you very much to Greg Vibrance and his team for working very diligently with us on this. But we have been sending out some weekly communications to staff just to understand, first off, that the vaccine is hopefully soon going to be available to us, introducing the vaccine itself, and then just going over some, frequently asked questions, awareness of the side effect, the fact that the COVID-19 vaccination is for prevention of severe cases. It doesn't cause COVID-19, that kind of thing. So we are just really working on making sure our employees are educated so that we can get as many staff as possible vaccinated when that comes to us. Jill, if you want to move to the next slide for me. So our first step again after that is basically then trying to identify how many staff members we have, first off, eligible to receive the vaccine, and then second, how many staff members are actually going to want to receive the vaccine through Westerville City Schools. We did identify that we have roughly 2,100 individuals that were eligible to receive the vaccine through Westerville. That does not include ESC employees. The ESC is working very diligently to vaccinate their substitutes, and our instructional aides are in that group as well. So, but everyone else, as far as operating the school, has been included in our roster. And if there are questions about that, feel feel free as well. The next thing, and we were having some plans to send this out. We're putting this on hold for now. We were going to be sending out a vaccine roster, basically asking individuals to tell us yes or no if you want to receive the vaccine. In light of some recent information, we are holding on this. That's not to say it won't still come out, but we are just holding for a little while. Jill, if you want to move to the next slide for us. In planning, and again, I'm going to keep this fairly brief. As we know, like I said, things are changing every day. We just want you to get a sense of where we're at in our thought process. Here are things that we have continuously been discussing. So one of the topics that has really come up is the possible priority groupings. Obviously, you don't want to have to group or tier, but if that was the case, the roster and request form that we had put together address this need. So we did have some questions on there about pre-existing conditions, age range. Those were all optional questions. And so at some point moving forward, if those questions were used to group or tier, we had the information there if necessary. Jill, next slide for me, please. And again, these are the very moving parts that we really don't have a lot of information about, but things that we are in conversations about every single day. So a location, obviously that's to be determined at this time, whether that will be in person, drive-through, where it's going to be held, that kind of thing. We were in talks, and we have Chief Miller, I'll let him discuss just after this last slide here. Our original plan was working with Westerville Fire Department, and their original plan was that they could vaccinate 100 individuals per hour, which was roughly 1,500 individuals per day. So we're looking at, timing as well, how long that would take, the fact that there are some side effects that we're seeing after the first and especially the second dose with the vaccine. So we're looking at the timing of everything. Friday would be ideal. And then looking at the possible staggering based on recovery time. Like I said, obviously Friday would be nice if you could give everybody the weekend to recover. But we are at the mercy of our pandemic provider here. So we are trying to be flexible in that. And then, moving forward, once we have everything in place, we're looking at scheduling, what type of forms, insurance identification. We are definitely working through all of those details as well. Jill, if you want to hit the next slide for me. Chief Miller, I think, are you still on this call as well? Feel free to chime in and address anything at this time. We do really want to thank Chief Miller for the work that he's put into this. It is amazing how much work can be done in less than 3 weeks when you've got a team like this put together. So we really want to say thank you.
Good evening, everybody. This is Chief Miller at the Westerville Fire Department. First of all, I really want to thank you, the staff at Westerville City Schools. Just to give you some background, I started working about a month, probably about 5 to 6 weeks ago, on preparing on how to vaccinate not only the Westerville firefighters, but all the firefighters in Franklin County, and quickly understood how large of a task this was. So based on that, my firefighters will be receiving their second vaccine Thursday and Friday and Monday and Tuesday of next week. But I quickly learned, obviously with the vaccine, there's a supply and demand issue right now. There's a very high demand for it, which is good, but there's not much supply. So that's why I met with your school administrators and explained to them it was important to kind of group people based on who you felt would need the vaccine based on their exposure to possibly being in contact with people who have COVID-19. Basically, a little bit of vaccines coming out at a time. So as we move forward in this pandemic, there may not be enough vaccine to vaccinate the entire staff of the Westerville City School District in one shot. And based on the numbers that, we discussed with your administration, up to 2,100 people, we could vaccinate about 600 people a day. And even if we got all the vaccine on, let's say, for example, February 1st, we were still looking at, 4 to 5 days to truly vaccinate everybody that wanted a vaccine. It's not magic. Even with the February 1st, and I'm using that strictly as an example, you receive the first vaccine, and then depending on which vaccine you get, if you get the Pfizer, 21 days later, you can get your second vaccine. If you receive the Moderna, 28 days later. And then even post your second vaccine, there's still about a 7 to 10, maybe up to 14 days where before you actually develop that full immunity, the 95% that they refer to. So again, working with your administration, the state has allowed paramedics to help give the vaccine. And in turn, we also applied as the fire department to become a pandemic provider. So we were working with the schools and again, understanding all the logistics and the dynamics of getting this set up and ready to go. As a service to our community, we really wanted to help the Westerville City School District with getting their staff vaccinated. And I'll be honest, I have 2 kids in Westerville City Schools, and just like everybody else, I'm excited to have my kids go back to school. But also I understand the reality of where we're at with the vaccinations, the process. And I wish I could snap my fingers and everybody was vaccinated and we could have this done in a week. But the reality is we're really looking at about 4 to 6 weeks before we can get everybody vaccinated. As was alluded to, the other thing, because there's such a limited amount of vaccine, as a fire department, I can only receive so much at a time. I know the state Department of Health is now rolling out some other plans that we just became aware of this morning, and I'm not going to speak to that. I'll leave that to your administration, but just know, we were here to help with you guys and your planning, and talking with a lot of my counterparts throughout Franklin County, the Westerville City School District. You guys were way ahead of the curve. We started getting the plans put together. I'm still planning as a contingency just in the event some other things don't work out. However, it sounds like another plan is coming into place. And I told your administrators from the beginning, if a better plan comes along and you can get the vaccine quicker, I would highly encourage you to take that. And it sounds like that might be what's in the works right now. But I just want to reassure everybody that the Westerville City School District has done everything they can to get this vaccine lined up. And, our goal is to get shots in arms. And I can say in all honesty that the Westerville City Schools is doing everything they can to make sure that that occurs and they get everybody vaccinated who wants to be vaccinated on their staff and with our teachers. So I am more than happy to answer any questions. That's just kind of a quick summary of where we're at. We got to keep in mind too, we're only 30 days into vaccinations, and we're talking about vaccinating, in Central Ohio alone, Franklin County, over 1 million people. I mean, this is no short undertaking. This is a Herculean event. And just doing simple math on it and the amount of people that we need to vaccinate, this is going to take a while. It is not going to happen overnight. And that's one thing I just want to make sure people realize is, like I said, we are all excited to get back to normal. I feel like there's a light at the end of the tunnel, but we still have some time ahead of us here that we still have to navigate through. I can tell you just based on, my firefighters, and when we do have somebody who tests positive for COVID, and then we get into our contact tracing and close contacts, especially with firehouses, I stand to lose 10 to 11 firefighters at once if we haven't been following the protocols that have been put in place. Knock on wood, fortunately that hasn't happened, and a lot of my firefighters are now getting vaccinated. But again, I still have to get the second half of our vaccinations done, and I still have to wait a few days past that for them to have their true efficacy of the vaccine. So again, I'm more than happy to answer any questions that anybody has, but just wanted to kind of inform everybody. We have been working with the schools for a long time to get a plan in place. I feel confident in the plan that we were working on. And like I said, there's just a lot of moving parts and pieces to this. And we will continue to be there to support the schools in any way we can. But I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you.
Questions from the board for either Chief Miller or Carly? And then I'll give you an update on the twist that happened over the weekend. I do really, I cannot thank Chief Miller and his team enough, and our team, and the way they tackled this problem. It's clear when I left my office on Friday, we had a plug and play plan ready. And I made this reference earlier, but it's kind of like this, you know. We had the kitchen, we had the pots and pans, we had the recipe, we had the cooks. We just need someone to give us the groceries, and that would be the vaccine. So what happened over the weekend? Through the governor's office, it has been determined that Ohio is going to focus on K-12 educators in 5 separate counties. Franklin County is one of the priority counties, which is where we reside. And so the state has determined that working through the educational service centers, so in Ohio, for those who are watching may not know this, educational service centers is a little over 50 of them across the state, and they kind of coordinate all kinds of services with local school districts, including our substitute pool that we use. It's a way of consolidating services. And so the state has designated them as kind of being the organizer in these counties. And then the state has identified some of the major players in Ohio to be the registered pandemic provider, which is what Brian and his team are. So over the weekend, we were presented that opportunity as well to partner through that. Kroger would be is the registered pandemic provider through that system, as opposed to working directly with Brian and his team. Our shared concern is that in the decision making of where is the limited vaccine going to go, we didn't want to be out of the loop. And so, like most of Franklin County, Columbus City will partner with Columbus Public Health. Worthington, which is actually in Columbus Public Health jurisdiction, will work with Columbus Public Health. Most of the rest of us are working in Franklin County through the ESC and Kroger. And more information is coming. But what we've been told, I was on a call this morning with Devin Babcock from the governor's office. He's one of their policy folks. And what he's sharing is that they fully feel that they will have vaccine ready and available to start administering to staff early February. So we're excited about that. And we're also excited to still have Brian on our call in case that plan runs into a snag, and or I continue to share with those policymakers, hey, I've got somebody up here ready to do the same thing. All we need, like I said, is the groceries. You bring us the doses. I've got the infrastructure to do that in a localized fashion here and help make this easier. So continue to make that call as a partnership. I think this isn't a case of competition. This should be a case of collaboration, and we're ready. And I know that Brian's a known entity within these health departments. They know him and his work because he's done big work with it. So that may still be the case. But that said, we are ready and waiting for that additional update from the state with actual dates, and then the opportunity for our staff to then be able to sign up to go get the vaccine. Keep in mind, being vaccinated is not a requirement for employment. This is a voluntary piece. It's protected by HIPAA, but we do want to provide that opportunity to all of our staff. And we would encourage them to look carefully at the information we've provided. Actually, this morning, I think I saw the first commercial I've seen in Ohio advertising about the vaccine and educating the public about it. We've been doing that for 2 weeks with our staff, and so we feel good about that. So those things are in place. They've hit on some of the details. I'm going to add one other piece, which we can turn to in a moment. Let me ask this first, before I turn to the next piece. Questions about our plans for vaccination for Brian, for Carly, for me, or for the team that you'd like to have. And then I'll talk a little bit about what does that mean post everybody vaccinated.
I have a question. So I just want to, I guess, reiterate, but just make sure I'm hearing this correctly. So that for the Pfizer vaccine, it's 21 days plus probably 14. And for the Moderna vaccine, it's 28 plus probably 14. So that's 6 weeks from when everybody's done with their first round of vaccinations, right? Then you're potentially out as far as 6 weeks to have everybody all the staff members who want to be vaccinated, and that 2 week post second vaccination so that it's as effective as it will be, right? And so I will get to the second part here in a minute, and I'm sure I'll have more questions there. But I also just wanted to ask a question regarding the vaccines. If you've had any conversations about, I realize this is a little bit farther off, but once we get staff vaccinated, this vaccine is approved ages 16 and up. Is that right?
Chief Miller, you might know better. I recall that I think Moderna is 16 up and up. I thought that, and the Moderna is the one which is what Ohio's been distributing so far, from my understanding, is the longer window between shots. Chief Miller, do you any more information that you can provide on ages? I thought it was 16 and up.
Yeah, sorry, I was just waiting to unmute there. Yeah, I believe it's Moderna is for ages 18 and up, okay. And I believe it's Pfizer is actually the 16 and up that it's been tested.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Which of course doesn't have any impact on the staff, but just thinking down the road what that means for once we get past the staff. Okay, thanks.
I'm curious, why wouldn't our ESC staff, substitutes and aides, be vaccinated?
They will be vaccinated, but the registration process will go through the ESC, who's directly. So all of the substitutes that are part of the ESC pool that we dip into will also be provided the opportunity to be vaccinated in this phase, but directly through the ESC.
Okay, so around the same time then also?
Absolutely, yeah,
okay,
within the same grouping. Yes.
Okay, good.
And Dr. Kellogg, so in your conversations thus far, have any dates been mentioned? I know February 1st has been mentioned as the rollout date, but we don't have a guarantee that it will start on that date. And do we have, well, I imagine we also do not have a guarantee how many doses will be coming or when. Is that correct?
That is correct. I would say that the conversation I was part of this morning with Governor's Office Representative Devin Babcock left me more optimistic that it would be early February and that they have identified supply to meet the demand. So knowing supply in this case and demand are tricky was one of the reasons we opted to move into the state-run model as opposed to our own model. But it's unfolding. I would hope that as the days of this week continue on, we might see something more concrete in the coming days, since February is, correct me if I'm wrong, next week. So we've sent information to staff this afternoon with that same information, just so that everybody's ready.
Okay, and the vaccine pool of what's being sent here, it's the Moderna vaccine?
That's my understanding at this point, that's what would be available.
Okay, and just to reiterate once again, so it's 4 weeks after the first dose that the second dose would be given, and then there is a 2-week, 10-day to 2-week time period beyond receiving the second dose before the 95% efficacy is in full effect.
Correct. And then I think the other minor variable underneath, two minor variables underneath. One, individuals who have recently tested positive, I think it's within 14 days, or have been symptomatic, would not be allowed to get the shot in that time period. So it is possible that some of our employees who want to may not be eligible because of that factor. And that I have a concern there, because I don't want them to miss out on the first, because what we've been told, K-12 educators who bypass this first opportunity, there is no timetable for second opportunity. And they're going to keep rolling through the system on a priority basis. So I just think it's people need to think that through carefully. So there's that piece that I may not be eligible or I opt not to. And from Chief Miller, who shared this with us, confirming what we have read, most people who get the first shot have a sore arm. Second dose, they're seeing fairly significant, I'm going to say 60%, and Chief Miller, if I got that wrong, feel free to correct me, but about 60% of people who become somewhat symptomatic for a couple hours, high fever, fatigue. So think that through. The last thing you want to do is vaccinate all of your bus drivers the second shot on the same day, right? So those components, as we see how this rolls out, I think the second dose date is more interesting to us in terms of how that might look. But we will be ready either way.
Okay, and so the plan the preliminary plans that have been established take that into account, that there will be so we're not vaccinating everybody on the same day, but we've looked at that and we have a plan to deal with that.
We will be able to account for that that variable when we get to that place. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You can hear, I think, Dr. Kellogg and Chief Miller. Chief Miller, really, I cannot tell you how much we appreciate what you have done and how you've supported this district. Truly, thank you. You can hear in our words, Dr. Like all of us, we're like chomping at the bit here. We really, and you can't say the date because they didn't tell you the date, and you can't say how much is coming because they didn't tell you how much is coming, but you can hear our voice. If we can just move this forward, we really want to do school, and we really want. That's just so much of our heart. And the reality is, not everybody's going to get shot. That's not good. Not everybody's going to get a shot on February 1st. And so we're looking at the middle of March. Because I think we all agree, we want them 95%. We want them to be as vaccinated as possible, right? Okay. So I thank you to the governor's office and all of that, and bringing in this new plan. That would be great. Having a Chief Miller there and saying, "Hey, anything I can do to help you," that is incredibly supportive. And I just want to affirm. I think it's okay. I just want to affirm Chief Miller's words. We are working really hard on trying to figure this out. I think that's all I'm going to say about that. And one just really simple question. This is really a simple question. We're going to work with Franklin County Public Health. That's who we're working. I just want to make sure our Delaware County people are, because some of us are in Delaware.
Well, we will be working through the ESC with Kroger as our pandemic provider. The county health departments are not in this at all.
Okay.
This is their staff, their delivery.
Okay.
So everybody else has talked, and I think Rick is right on target when he says we are all chomping at the bit. But I also want to reiterate, as Carly said, things are still very fluid, and we have a lot of planning that has been done, but we cannot implement until some of the fluidity gels, and that's what we're waiting for. Chief Miller, thank you so much for the incredible work that you are doing on behalf of firefighters and on behalf of this community, and for your a great partnership with Westerville Schools. It is deeply appreciated. And thank you also for pointing out the amount of planning that has been going on. It is one thing to have plans. It is another thing to have plans that are implementable. And implementable plans are what we're looking for. And we can only do that once we get additional information. I am really glad to hear the way things are starting to break loose, and the the state's plan to roll this out through the ESCs and Kroger. I think that has great possibility for us. If we can continue to work with Chief Miller's plan as well, that would provide even additional layers. And John, thank you for continuing to point out that we are willing and able to look at other ways to provide the vaccine in this particular community as well. That's important. But the bottom line is there's still a lot we don't know. However, I think basically I'm kind of segueing, John. My next thing is not about this really important information that we've just shared, but as we look at how things are beginning to gel, then what it says we need to really bring out of those kitchen cupboards, if you want to use your analogy again. But as we think about what those next plans will be, I know that you and your team have been working diligently, and that there's been a lot of, if this happens, then this could happen. If this happens, then that could happen. A lot of moving pieces, a lot of mixed variables that are out there. But I want to know where we go from here. And what's the next phase? How do we get back to school, and what's it looking like, even in the context of knowing that if everything went beautifully and the trucks rolled in with the refrigerated vaccines and everybody lined up by the hundreds, the very soonest it would even be possible to consider bringing back to school is not until mid-March. And that's if everything was perfect. So where are we? What happens now?
Before I go there, I saw Chief Miller's microphone come on and off a couple times. So I'm going to, before I transition, make sure that he and Carly covered everything they wanted to. Did we miss anything, Chief? Was there anything else you wanted to add before I transition?
No, I think we're good. Again, I appreciate working with the schools. The staff has just been incredible, and I truly feel that they are trying to look out in everybody's best interest. I will add, we did have some issues with a couple firefighters that did get the first part of the vaccine and did end up getting COVID-19 after getting the vaccine. Not related, but it just goes to show that, you're not 100% immune after that first vaccine. And I actually talked to a physician today who had both doses of the vaccine and actually contracted COVID-19 right after he got his second vaccine. So just want to reiterate how important it is that, you do have to give it some time to work. And I know after I got my first vaccine, I felt like, hey, this is great, I'm immune. But the reality is you're not at 95% yet. So other than that, again, appreciate the relationship that we have with the schools, and we will continue to stand by and do everything we can to get our community vaccinated. And we're here to be with you, and we're all in this together. So thank you.
Thanks, Chief, and thanks, Carly. So I'm going to turn to the question Dr. Nestor Baker asked, and a couple things to remember. Everything we read about what does it mean when someone's vaccinated tells us that this is headed in the right direction, but it is not the end-all solution. Everything we read indicates that until there's a high degree of immunizations headed towards crowd immunity, right? I don't like the term herd, crowd immunity. That collectively as communities, we still have to address the issue, right? Which is maintaining social distancing, wearing our masks, washing our hands, being thoughtful. So whereas there may be some allowance for opening up a little bit more or doing a little bit more, it's still not going to be what we expect. if this was the fall, I wouldn't expect to see 7,000 people in a football stadium the day after we vaccinate everybody, right? There's still going to be limitations to what we can do under these conditions, because this is just the K-12 educators, and some of the other Tier 1A folks have been given the vaccine. So there's still concerns there. In addition, as a district, we will still be dealing with quarantining and active cases, particularly amongst our students. They're not getting the vaccine. My numbers to date, we've had over 3,500 students quarantined during first semester. 3,500 students, that's 3,500 families have had to face quarantining in their household. And a lot of those standards at this point and recommendations don't change with the vaccine. We had to close school one day before winter break because we didn't have enough drivers. So there's still these considerations as we move closer to that opportunity to bring all our kids back. And we certainly want to work in that direction. I was on a call with several of superintendents from Franklin County area this afternoon as we talked about this question, because we all know in our communities this is going to rise up, the question of what does this mean about coming back? And collectively, what we're all discussing is, what are the implications for coming back? What is the science telling us? What are the recommendations being made to us? I'll state, and I think accurately, that to this date, no one has said, once you vaccinate all your staff in a school district, you are okay to bring kids back full in. I think there's an implication that we all feel that that should be the case. I think there's a possibility that that opportunity be presented to us. But we're only, as Chief Miller said, weeks into vaccinating people, and we haven't even given a single staff member vaccine yet. And even with that, as you've heard, we're 6 weeks from when we could even consider whether or not that's the case. That said, yes, planning's been going on for that day for a while. This might sound trite, but it's true. If there's anything we're good at, it's bringing all the kids back to school. We do it every year in August. We know how to do that. Our families know how to do that. We want to do that. We want to be ready for that. We want to be able to do it safely for our staff, for our community, and for our students. And this may be the initial point where we start to see that opportunity comes. I just think we're going to need to be a little more patient, a little more time. So that would be my kind of global perspective on where we're at with it. But happy to entertain questions from the board and give you more and see what else I can tell you.
Anybody? So, could you map out for us, after we get the staff vaccinated, not dates, maybe at the next meeting, what the plan is? For example, would you bring all students back at once? Would we phase in certain segments of students? How exactly will that look? Could you do that for us?
Absolutely. We've been playing with those variables for a while and talking about those points of consideration. For example, there's logic to saying, let's start with the youngest students first, low spread rate. They need to get in school. They're not functioning as well in a remote environment at home. And then the case can also be made that we probably want to take a close look at our seniors who are headed towards graduation for two reasons. One is to help any senior that might be behind on their graduation requirements. And two, it's their senior year. How much of it can we get for them going out the door? It's not going to be the same thing. I don't anticipate prom. I don't anticipate a large graduation ceremony indoors. I don't see those things opening up at this point. That could change, but I don't see that on the horizon, even with the vaccine going the way we are. Maybe that'll change. Those plans are working out too. So yeah, we could definitely bring back for the board in this next 2 weeks as we now transition, right? So, if the news comes, hey, next week we're going to vaccinate all your staff, now we got a clock, and we can continue having the conversations with those people we lean on, the health experts, for okay, what are you thinking now? Where are you with mitigation standards? Where are you with school coming back? Where are we collectively as a leadership team feeling comfortable in this next phase. So, like I said, I think the sun's coming up over the horizon. It's just, how fast and how glorious will it be. So I think we're heading in that right direction. So to your question, Ms. Davidson, yes, we'd absolutely enjoy the opportunity to bring that back in the next board meeting to share at least one, if not more, models of what would that look like, all those points of consideration. How would we deal with lunch, transportation, some of the other pieces that come with that. And also, we've already answered this question, the WVA students who have committed to the year, we need to maintain that commitment. We gave them the commitment for the rest of the semester as all these things fluctuated. They remained in there. That piece stays in place for the rest of the year. So that has to be part of that planning piece. So yes, we can do that, absolutely. And probably start to talk a little bit about what we know about graduation, some of these other events coming up, what we think those might look like moving forward.
Thank you.
I think that'd be really hopeful for a lot of people in the community to see. I like that, Mrs. Davidson, the idea of just having some schematic of possibilities, and I recognize that that's plural, based on what we can do and say accurately. The only other thing I would say is, and I'm actually picking up again on something Chief Miller said, I have just been very encouraged by the amount of work and collaboration going on with your staff and with the union and people behind the scenes, trying to figure out, okay, how can we do this together? We're hearing a lot of newspaper news articles about unions in schools and so on. I guess it's just important for us to acknowledge we've never gotten any negative pressure from our teachers and staff. I think that they want to be in as much, if not more, than anyone else. So I guess this is just a thank you to you, Dr. Kellogg, and this floor and everybody here, but also to teachers and staff who are saying, yeah, we want to be in healthy because we want our kids in school. So I'm just appreciative of all that the planning and it's already gone with to use Nancy's words, an incredibly fluid situation. It's beyond fluid. It's liquid and slippery. It's trying to catch mercury in your hands, which is something you shouldn't do, kids. I know. I'm just saying. This is why I was an English literature major. So thank you, everyone, for working behind the scenes. And yeah, I think that'd be great to get some schematics from you.
I agree. I'm looking forward. It's time now. We have enough that we can see where some of the horizon is starting to show through the fog or the mist or whatever you want to call it. We have enough that we're now able to begin to put some of those schematics together. So I very much agree with what Tracy said. I agree with what Rick said, and look forward to seeing what those possibilities are, knowing that, as Tracy said, it's not likely to be possible unless there are some significant changes between now and our next meeting. It's not likely to be possible that there will be specific dates put on those.
I would like to just thank you for that. I look forward to that in 2 weeks. Thanks for asking. I was going to ask for the same thing. I think we all wanted to ask for that same thing tonight because we all want to see how we think we're going to get more kids, maybe all kids, back in sooner rather than later. And so I guess I have one question, and it's sort of taken a step back from where our conversation has been. And so I think an assumption behind everything we've said tonight is that we can't bring students back until the staff is vaccinated, right? And I'm comfortable with that. That's been my feeling all along. But could you talk about, as an administration, how sort of we arrived at that being a prerequisite to bringing students back in a full sort of environment?
Sure, and I think it goes back to all the early discussions. So if you go back, I don't know how many months ago, was 7 or 8 months ago, when they started talking about mitigation strategies and the multi-layered approach, right? That's why we have a mask, that's why we're 6 feet, that's why we wash our hands, that's why, we do all these things. Well, vaccinating your staff is another layer of mitigation. It protects the individual from, strongly protects a lot of people from being symptomatic. But we're still, because as a world, we're still just getting into the vaccine piece and understanding it, and understanding what it means in terms of a person's ability to still transmit, right, from one person to the other, and what that might be. We need to keep those things in place. But it appears, but what we're seeing is this becomes a mitigation strategy on top of mask wearing and social distancing. Now, the social distancing piece is, as we know, we've been committed to 6 feet. It is, all literature it's the preferred measure. There are people who talk about 3 feet. It's less preferred, but it can work. Let's be honest, 9 feet's better than 6 feet, and 12 feet's better than that, right? And 3 feet's not as good as 4 feet. And what we also know is when kids are walking around buildings and in classrooms, there is give and take around those distances. So the mitigation, the adding a mitigation piece, all your staff having the opportunity to be vaccinated, as another layer of protection that allows us to look at, okay, with additional protection, can we step further into bringing more kids back on a more regular basis? And those are conversations we've already started. I've asked the question and want to continue to hear what our health department folks are hearing from the experts. That's what we need to weigh. And I think that discussion is going to pick up in intensity from a national perspective, CDC, to Ohio Department of Health, and to our county health departments over the next couple of weeks. I think you'll start to see that lineage of conversation. What does it mean for schools? Because this is not just Westerville. This is Franklin County, 5 counties in Ohio. All of the states across the country have prioritized this. So there's a movement, so to speak, towards this additional standard or additional strategy, and that's what's promising.
Yeah, thanks for just walking through that and sort of how we arrived at that being behind the decision to bring back more kids. And I'll just say, as a person, I don't speak for anybody else up here ever, but for myself, I so value our teachers and what they have been doing. I mean, it's incredible. I see it through other kids, but I see it at home too, through my 3, and I would never want to ask them to come back in a situation where they can't feel as safe as possible. So for me, having them vaccinated, if they so choose, before they come back, that's just where, that's what makes sense to me. So thank you for putting the plans in place. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I would just like to thank you, Dr. Kellogg, for all of the work and the planning that really has been going on all along, and for taking a measured and responsible, what I would call measured and responsible way of releasing information, so that we don't release a plan that as soon as we release it, the next day, 2 days later, then we have to totally change everything, because there is also a danger of releasing information and plans too soon, and there are so many variables to be considered that any of which could change the shape of what our plan looks like. I want to thank you for being measured and responsible in how we are releasing that information, but also to let our parents, students, and the public know that those conversations have been going on and that plans have been made. But there's a time and a way in which that information needs to be and should be released. So thank you for that. Any other questions? Anybody else or comments? Is there anything else, Dr. Kellogg, that you would like to add in your report?
I was just a little surprised nobody asked if the shot hurts. That's the only question that I've had the whole time is this going to hurt? Because it is a needle. But no, that about covers it. And if I made too light, I would apologize. But we are ready to go, and we appreciate the board's help. And we will be back in 2 weeks with what it looks like.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Moving on in our agenda. Agenda item 8.01, public comments pertaining to action items. We have received, there are public comments that have been received, but none particularly pertaining to action items. So we will move on to agenda item 9.01, to approve the financial report and investments for November and December of 2020. May I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Marshall, would you like to share with us about the...
Thank you, President Bell, members of the board. First, I need to apologize. Somehow, before this board meeting, I realized that September's FinSum report was loaded into board docs and not November's. So that has since been replaced. So what you have before you is November 30th month-end financial report and December 31st month-end financial report. So we're going to go over November 30th first. For year-to-date expenditures for the general fund, we had $83.9 million. For year-to-date expenditures for the general fund, we had $77.8 million. And we ended with an unencumbered fund balance in November for the general fund of $127.2 million. For all funds in November, we had year-to-date receipts of $113.7 million and year-to-date expenditures of $129.4 million. And we ended with an unencumbered fund balance of all funds with $244 million. Again, just a reminder, we do have the bond funds included in those totals. December 31st month end and first half of the fiscal year 21. December 31st general fund year-to-date receipts, we had $90.5 million. Year-to-date expenditures, we had $90.8 million, and we ended with an unencumbered fund balance of $121.2 million in the general fund. For all funds, we had year-to-date receipts of $123.9 million, year-to-date expenditures of $147.4 million, and we ended with an unencumbered fund balance of $237.7 million. And I did receive a question from a board member about our 004 funds and what the LFI means. So if you look at our financial summary report that's on the monthly financial reports, some of our 004 building project funds have two funds, which are, it might say like Amherst renovations, and then there's also another one that says Amherst LFI. So the LFI is the locally funded initiative portion. So that's the portion that's over and above what the OFCC is co-funding. We are required to account for that separately, and so that's what those accounts are for. With that, any questions?
Okay, hearing none. Ms. Marshall, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mr. Velarde?
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Bell?
Yes. Moving on to agenda item 10, the 10.01 through 10.10, the personnel consent agenda. May I please have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Well, good evening, President Bell, members of the board, Dr. Kellogg and Ms. Marshall. I'd like to present for your consideration the personnel consent agenda. Many items that are contained within are through the normal course of business. However, I do feel the need to highlight some of the items. You will notice we have 2 retirements to celebrate. We have the retirement of David Haney, math teacher at Westerville South High School. Will be retiring at the end of this year. He has served the district for approximately 25 years. We have Janet Pritchard, also from Westerville South High School, will be retiring at the end of the year. She has served the district for 27 years. I'd like to join me in thanking them for their service to the students and community of the Westerville City Schools. As we prepare for staffing and planning into next year, another item to highlight is that we have 2 requests for 1-year leave of absences for the 21-22 school year already. That helps us plan knowing teachers that we're going to have to either replace or bring in. And so as we prepare for that, that's always helpful. And then you'll notice one-time payments. We have obviously several PD opportunities for staff. I think an item of interest to note is the academic support teachers. These staff members will be working with those students who were not as successful as we would have wanted in the WVA model, but who are returning to our current instructional model in the buildings. Also included in the work that they'll be doing will be those students who are struggling in general, who would benefit from additional supports. Our principals and curriculum folks have been collaborating and planning so that the structure is in place for these students as they return. And then you'll notice we're hiring somebody at this point in the year. Madison Crandall is being hired into our preschool at this point. That position was available because the preschool teacher had accepted an open position, reading position at Annhurst Elementary. Those are the items I'd like to highlight this evening. I'd be happy to try and answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mazzy. You may have noticed that is not Dr. Hopkins, that is Steve Mazzy, our Executive Director of Human Resources. So thank you for that report. Board members, any questions?
As the academic support effort is implemented, I'm asking Dr. Kellogg if you would bring a report back to us on how that implementation goes, any challenges, any successes that we see with that. I am very much in favor of it. I know that we have kids who have come back that are struggling. I know we have other kids who are struggling as well. So I'm really eager to hear how this rolls out. It's a really good idea. And if you could bring a report in the future as to how that looks, I would really appreciate that. And the only other thing that I wanted to point out is Dave Haney and Janet Pritchard. They're legends in this school district, and they are caring, they are inspiring, and they are 2 people who are utterly devoted to doing the best they can for their students and uplifting the profession in all the ways that they know how. So I thank Janet and Dave, and 2 more people that, you know how it goes. The legends leave, but new legends do come along. But thank you to these 2 particular legends.
Okay, any other additional comments, questions? Hearing none. Ms. Marshall, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Velarde?
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes.
Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Mr. Bell?
Yes. Moving on to agenda item 11 with old business. There is none. Agenda item 12, new business. There is none. Agenda item 13.01, donations. We certainly thank everyone for all of these. May we have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second?
Any questions or comments about these gifts, these donations? Okay, hearing none. Ms. Marshall, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Velarde?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Bell?
Yes. Moving on to agenda item 14.01, public comments. Okay. We have first comment from Aaron Bates, and it says, why is the city of Westerville not being more proactive and creative when it comes to our virtual learning? Many districts are streaming live sessions to the cohort learning remote. Please start thinking outside of the box, Westerville. Okay. Our next comment comes from Todd Lotz, and it says, failure to plan is planning to fail. Okay. The next comment comes from Kim Snyder, and it reads, what is the plan for graduation? There are ways to have this once-in-a-lifetime ceremony in person. It will take asking questions from schools who managed it in 2020, looking to sporting events and how they restricted flow, limited number of spectators, staggered start and stop times, changed venues, etc. 2020 drive-through was unfortunate but understandable with being under full lockdown and only having weeks to plan. We will have had over a year to plan 2021. I am sure there are senior parents in the district that would assist in this. Thank you. The remaining comments are from persons who would like the district to return to school in person full time and sharing the impact on families. Those persons who have submitted comments related to that subject, Rebecca Siam, I hope I'm pronouncing her last name correctly, John Brooks, Emily Fergenick, Allison Meekum, Lori Schultz, Craig Will, Audrey Gonzalez, Jessica Coate, Sarah Coltrane, Kristen Thompson, Brooke Payne. The common themes and questions about returning to 100% all in person. Questions, when will the district commit to making plans to return to full-time learning so families are prepared? What is the plan to reopen schools fully? Are we waiting for 6 feet of social distancing to no longer be recommended? even though the CDC says 3 feet with mask is effective? Are we waiting for the infection numbers to go down, even though we know that kids are safest in schools, according to Governor DeWine? What considerations are you actively exploring to make full-time learning a reality? If the teachers get the vaccine next month, why can't we go back full-time? And what is the preliminary estimate for percentage of staff who wants the vaccine? Is it being required? And what happens if they choose not to vaccinate? So we want to thank everyone for sending in their questions and comments. Many of these questions have been answered and addressed in the superintendent's report. And so they will be followed up with at a later time. Agenda item 15.01, board comments. Who would like to go first?
I think, Mr. Velardo, we should go in reverse alphabetical order.
Yep. Second.
Mr. Velardo?
Thank you, Ms. Altman. I appreciate that. Just real quickly, a big thank you to the groups that sponsored the Poetry Slam, just the Challenge and Education Foundation. That's really anytime you can give kids, students, an outlet for creativity, anytime. I would say even more importantly now, but anytime. That's critical. So thank you for doing that. Those that were with us tonight, from the chief to Desmond to Carly to all, just really very grateful for your support. And we are chomping at the bit, Dr. Kellogg. I'm just, we're all chomping. I know you are too. We're just chomping at the bit, and all of those comments tonight, we are on your team. We want to know how to get it back in safely and well. To Greg Vibrance and Charlie Boss, who have done a boss job of getting out the information. See what I did there, Charlie? Getting out the information to our staff for how important this education process is. We are so excited. And I am the community engagement liaison for the liaison for community engagement, and we have one really cool thing that happened on the news tonight that I hope they're going to repeat at the later news. Channel 6 is doing something called Highlighting the Helpers. Have y'all heard about this? They're highlighting the helpers. And at Westerville North, the Interact Club, which I believe is connected to a Rotary, probably the Noon Rotary Club, but Sunrise might have done something. Anyway, the Interact group, this is really cool. And Miss Robinson is there at Westerville North, is the Elizabeth Robinson is the Interact advisor. And the students are working on safe ways to reach out and care about people. And they have decided to hand write notes to elderly folks in our community. Just to add drawings on the notes and to just do a really cool thing. So I just wanted to share that with you. That's it. Did I say that's at Channel 6? I don't know if I said that. Channel 6. And it was done at 5 o'clock tonight, is my understanding. Probably none of us saw it. I didn't get to see it because we were on our way here. But hopefully they will repeat that at 10 or 11 o'clock tonight. Anyway, highlighting the helpers. Thank you, Westerville North, Interact, group. And thank you to Elizabeth, Ms. Robinson, for highlighting that. Thank you, students, for doing that. Very important. Thank you, Ms. Altman, for allowing me to share that. That's it, President Bell.
Thank you, sir. Since we're going in reverse order, Dr. Nestor Baker.
That is me. And thank you. Too often people think they're supposed to alphabetize by the Baker part, and it's actually alphabetizing by the Nestor part. Well done. You got one of my pet peeves there. I wanted to point out, and I know we all saw it, I think everybody watching this saw it, the number of partnerships that were evident in tonight's meeting. When we look at our incredibly long and deep relationship with the city manager and the assistant city manager, and I feel sure that those relationships will continue beyond the retirement of those two people that we recognize tonight. And we look at Leadership Westerville, and we look at Education Challenge, and we look at the Arts Council, and particularly as we look within the city of Westerville, when we look at our strong partnership with Chief Miller. This isn't normal in a lot of districts. And sometimes I think we can take it for granted in this particular school district. The level of interaction, the collaboration that we engage in across institutions, across nonprofits, across corporate interests, across individuals, across staff, across students. This is a remarkable set of partnerships that happens here. It happens all the time, not just during the difficult times that we live in now. And I want to applaud the people of this community for making sure that that important part of who we are is perpetually strengthened. So I was noticing it over and over tonight. Everything in the agenda in some way partnered with someone else.
Thank you. Mrs. Davidson?
Yes, Nancy, I was kind of noticing a happy meeting this time, so I kind of noticed the same thing too. I want to wish Dave Collinsworth and Julie Colley a happy retirement. And if you would like to share your time and talents with us, we could always use subs, bus drivers. I don't know. I'm sure we can make a deal there.
I already offered Dave bus driving and he semi-accepted. So
food service. I mean, we've got some, whatever. Come on. Congratulations to Issa and Desmond. Thank you for your impact you are making on the world. Desmond, you used the word love over and over again, and I think that's what you're spreading, so thank you. Congratulations to Jeffrey and Sage. We appreciate you sharing your words of hope. And to Chief Miller and Carly, thank you so much for sharing your plan and give us hope also. I'll stick with that theme. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Davidson. And Ms. Altman.
Thank you. Well, ditto. I've been waiting for months to just say everything. Ditto. No, I mean, I really do mean that. There were so many great things in tonight's meeting, and just celebrating the wonderful, wonderful people in this community and all the work we do together. And just, you know, I just want to appreciate them all. And that's what makes our schools great and this community great. So, ditto. And I also just wanted to say, you know, there was the comment about seniors and graduation and families sharing their stories, and I appreciate all of those stories that get shared with us through email and in other ways. And, you know, I just want to say that as a parent in this district, I always try to, you know, I serve on the board, but there's this lens that you have as, you know, we all have different lenses on the district, and mine is I have three kids in it, and I grew up going through this district. But I just want to share two pieces right now, maybe three, because I have three kids. One is a senior. So all your feelings about seniors, senior parents out there, I'm not the only one with a senior up here either. President Bell, we understand those feelings. We understand that this is a hard, I'm having conversations in my house, this is a hard time to finish a senior year strong is always hard. It is really hard this year. And to not know, to not have those big celebrations, to not know what graduation looks like. So we hear you, we are with you, and Dr. Kellogg is going to bring us more information back in a couple of weeks. So I hear that. I have a kid in the WVA, and I know there's a lot of confusion about what would it mean if kids go back in, is the WVA ending? And so thank you for speaking to that directly. The WVA is a year-long commitment. It's going to continue for those kids. So they can have the stability that they wanted for the year. And then I will also say that I have a 5th grader who loves her elementary school and is already grieving that she's going to go to middle school next year that she doesn't really want to go to. I mean, it's a great middle school, her sisters tell her, but she's not feeling ready. And that her friends, you know, you go to middle school and your friends start to scatter. So just as a human, right, I just wanted to say that we all have our lens on the things that are going on, and we all have personal touch points with the district. So I just say that we hear you, and everybody has their own experience, but in some ways we can understand. So thank you for letting me just share that, my own family's experience right now, and thank all the people behind the scenes who are making plans and changing plans and adjusting plans. And I'm thrilled that we might start to be able to pin some of those down a little bit. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. In closing, I would just like to also congratulate our Poetry Slam winners, our Austin and Faust Award winners. I certainly enjoy being able to recognize one of our students and a member of the community every year for their work in living out the ideals of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Want to also thank certainly Dave Collinsworth and Julie Colley. Thank you for your service to our community and the partnership that we have enjoyed together over the years. Want to thank our 2 retirees for your many years of service and dedication to the students and the families of this district. We thank you for the hard work and the sacrifice that you made to help our children learn, grow, and develop and go on to be great people. I want to thank Dr. Kellogg. Thank you for your report this evening, and really you and all of the team that works along with you. Thank you for all of the hard work that you all continue to do. I would also like to say to all of those who have emailed us, that have submitted comments here this evening, we hear you, and that we are responding as best as we can to this very fluid situation that we find ourselves in. We truly believe that we are in this thing together, and together we will chart a course forward, because for us, I'll speak for all of us on this one, that we truly believe it's not just a motto that's on the sign. We really want the Westerville City School District to be a place where you belong. So keep the questions coming, keep the comments coming, and we will do the best that we can to serve you in excellence. So thank you all very much. Agenda item 16.01, The next meeting date, time, and location. The board will meet in a hybrid virtual meeting on Monday, February the 8th, 2021 at 6:00 p.m. at the Early Learning Center, 936 East Wind Drive in Westerville. Next agenda item, 17.01, is adjournment. May I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All right, hearing none. Ms. Marshall, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Velarde,
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker,
Yes.
Mrs. Altman,
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson,
Yes.
Mr. Bell.
Yes, and we are adjourned.
8:01.